Welcome to the 16th season of the NitWits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Our panel includes Neil Riddell of the Altoona Mirror, Mark Brennan of FightOnState.com, Jacob Cowker of WTAJ Sports, and a special guest nitwit each week. The Nitwits are brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Doctors Howells, Reed, and Solani, orthodontics for children and adults. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona. Just ask rental. Buy what you want, rent what you need. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your cleaning needs. By Your Rehab Choice, Health South Altoona. Ask for us by name. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By the Altoona Professional Hearing Aid Center, your hearing aid healthcare professional. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday.
Hey there, welcome inside another episode. We've got, as always, Neil Riddell from the Altoona Mirror, Mark Brennan from FightOnState.com. I'm Jacob Cowker, your host and traffic cop, I guess. And of course, our special guest, our rotating guest, and one of our favorites, Joe Nastasi. Joe, welcome back.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You, of course, were part of some of the best offensive teams in Penn State history. The offense that we're looking at this year, not among that rank so far. One of the worst, or the worst scoring offense in the Big Ten. Is this, we keep asking, can they get it turned around? Is this one of those things that with this week off, maybe circle the wagons a little bit?
Well, I wonder, Joe, from a receiver's perspective, we've really covered their limitations as far as their offensive line. What are you seeing? What are some of the things that they can do to deal with this reality of their offensive line?
Well, that's what everyone's talking about. That's the easy answer, is saying, okay, it's all offensive line. And when you look at it from an X's and O's standpoint, I don't know how you actually have to scale it back. And what we all know is that we're young up there. We got guys flipped over from the defensive side of the ball, and from my perspective, was playing receiver. The best pass game was a really good run game because it just completely changed that safety coming down the box. And I don't know if the regular fan understands how important that is. When they can get heat with four or stop the run lanes with four guys up front, it really makes it very, very difficult downfield. And that's why a lot of times people are saying, get rid of the football to Hackenberg. But there's so many times that he doesn't have a choice. He has to try and make a play. And that's why, because they're dropping 7, and it's difficult, number one, to run routes. They're able to play a high-low on guys. They can man under. They can cover with 2 high safeties, so they say throw it deep, but you have 2 high safety. So that's the critical part of, and we've seen this with Tom Brady, when he had a weaker offensive line and they couldn't run the ball well, he struggled bad. He looked really bad. And then, so we got a great quarterback. I think we're, again, 2 years to a year and a half away from really getting solid again, but it's going to all come down to run game, in my opinion.
Joe, the one thing I would ask you about, because obviously you played, everybody knows the issues with the offensive line, and we've beaten them to death, and I don't think they're going to change. I think they have their best personnel out there. But in terms of Hackenberg, the one thing I've mentioned is I think he needs to be patient. And people could rip that and say, well, how can you be patient when someone's in your face? Well, I mean the overall concept of the game. Mm-hmm. So when there's a 3rd and 4 and he's trying to force the ball into a freshman receiver, maybe that's where patience comes in, and you throw the ball away and live to fight another day, especially with their defense. The way the defense is playing, it kind of keeps them in every single game. And that's the one thing I'd like to see from Christian, is some better decision making.
Yeah, and what we saw from last year that we did better last year, we had a better offensive line, but what we did better last year, I think, game planning wise, was the use of our tight ends as opposed to this year. I think we rely more on spread style offense this year as opposed to maybe what Bill had with the pro style offense, where he was able to have 2 or 3 in the game and still be very dangerous with the pass game. If you remember years in the past, we had Kyle Carter had the one big year, but they hit him a lot. And a lot of that had to do with, being inexperienced on the edges. And I just think that would, in my opinion, be better for us this year, is to try and do a slower pace, use the tight ends a little bit more, and I think it would be a little bit more accuracy from the quarterback standpoint, especially when you're saying like on 3rd and 2s.
Schematically, how can, one of the things that keeps coming up is it's not just on the offensive line, it is on those tight ends, it's on the wide receivers. How can those 2 units maybe help not just ease the pressure as far as creating maybe more of a passing threat, but also win that running game? Right.
Well, when I look at, every once in a while I can get a chance to check in all 22, which is, where you can see the field and watch the routes run by these receivers and tight ends. And these guys, they're talented. They're a talented bunch. And that's, I feel a certain way because, you don't ever want to let a class go or say, we're 2.5 years away, because all those boys are up there working hard, doing what they have to do. And I feel like, we have the talent on the edges. I really do. Those guys are young, but they run good routes. They catch the ball. I mean, everyone's going to make mistakes, of course. I think, again, with the pass game, I think some of it comes down to, the scheme and where we're actually reading it to. Some of that may be some play call. But again, it all stems from the lack of being able to get 2 or 3 if you need it from the run game.
You mentioned the tight end, and that was really an O'Brien forte. And so many times he would drag Jesse James across the middle.
Yeah.
That was kind of a money play. But the Brenneman play where they freed him up 1-up on the safety against Wisconsin, which got that game started. So they were able to get the ball to a tight end, and he had a lot of running room. And I don't know that you're necessarily quite seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, and they have, if you look at it, our tight ends, we have bigger tight ends and tight ends that can run pretty good. They're going to have the better matchup. There's no question. You're always going to have the better matchup. Well, at least you would feel you would, and I feel like the talent we have, we should. It's also a quicker ball. It is out a little faster. Again, with somewhat of a threat of a pass or a run game, those tight ends should be more effective. And hopefully this week, again, we're not there every day, but hopefully this week we see a little bit of that, because you can see we moved the ball down there and we were able to run it a little bit early in the game, and I don't know if I felt like we may have abandoned a little quick, but again, it's just hard for us to call that whenever we're not seeing exactly what they're doing upstairs.
Well, what would you be doing with Zwinek? I mean, this is a 2000 career rusher who really has been phased out.
Yeah. This is a tough one. It's tough to see. It's really unfortunate we had the injuries we did up front, and it's unfortunate that we don't actually have, a progressive offensive line throughout the years to be able to sit back there. And I know I could just only imagine the frustration. I can only imagine the frustration that he's having, because one of the things that he is not is a read option style draw kind of running back. I mean, that's just not what he is. And Bill would get under center. He would do some slow stretch and some things like that, where he'd be able to have a zone side right, zone left kind of blocking scheme, which they do a lot of. If you see with Arian Foster in the league, they seem to do that a lot. And he's almost limited in the style of offense because of the type of running back he is.
Yeah, he's also a guy, Joe, that when he's gotten 25, 30 carries, that's when he's been at his best. And that may seem, master of the obvious here, but he tended to get better as the games went along. And with this offensive line, I just don't see him getting that many carries. And that's, I still, whatever Akeel Lynch's issues may be in pass protection, I wonder if he doesn't bring you that much more in the running game, because he's so quick to the hole. He seems like he fits with a lot of the things that you're talking about, maybe better than the other 2 guys.
Well, what Joe always say, what's the definition of a great tailback? A guy you get in the secondary 2 or 3 times a game and he scores.
Yeah.
All right, I got to play traffic cop here. We'll continue this conversation when we get back. We'll take a look at the second half. And do we have to, start reevaluating our predictions for the second half relative to what we talked about coming into the year, change some things up?
Your predictions have been pretty good, Jake.
We'll maybe reevaluate what is ahead for Penn State when the NitWits returns.
The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, No one will work harder to sell your home. By Doctors Howells, Reed, and Solani, orthodontics for children and adults. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona. Just ask rental. Buy what you want, rent what you need.
I'm Matt McGloin, and you're watching the NitWits.
The quarterback before the most recent one, or the current one, I guess you can say, Matt
What
McGloin.
a success story he is.
He was Kyle Carter's favorite QB, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Great story, though, you're right.
So we were talking just about some of these offensive struggles coming into the break, and it has been one of those up and down rides. You know, people after the 4-0 start kind of ready to crown Penn State as a Big Ten contender. Now people are jumping off the bandwagon all again. Is this too much of an overreact, a knee-jerk reaction from game to game, week to week, or do we really have to reevaluate where things are at for Penn State?
Well, I mean, I think we're all trying to get used to a new coaching staff and watch how what their tendencies are. And I think, it's really, let's face it, it's a transitional year, win-loss record, and as we get used to James Franklin. The thing that I'm kind of watching is, against Michigan, that game was there for the taking. I want to give Northwestern credit. Penn State could have won that game, but I think Northwestern did win that game.
And came back with a nice win the next week against Wisconsin.
The one in Michigan, I think, kind of sticks in the craw. But that said, they very easily could have lost to UCF or Rutgers. So record-wise, we're about where I think people thought
the
they
one
would
thing
be.
that I didn't really like hearing after the Michigan game was James Franklin saying this is a great time for a bye. The previous bye was a great time because they had traveled so much. With the lack of scholarships, guys were probably beaten up.
Yeah.
But, you lose 2 games like that. I think it would have been great for this team to get back out and play. I don't care if it was Ohio State or who, but get out there and play. And I just don't think that this is a great time for a bye.
But I think that speaks to they're not quite sure how they want to attack certain things, and that's probably what's
Well, hopefully they come up with better answers than they did during the previous bye.
Yeah, the
needs
bye.
another week.
Yeah, the bye weeks are tough. I'm not a big fan of the 2 bye weeks in a college football year. I mean, I know everyone looks at it like they're getting healthy and healing up, but I think it can cut momentum. I think it's too much
Hopefully
time.
it did cut momentum.
Well, I'll tell you, but it's one of those, the one coming up before it, and then back to back. Now you're going to sit on 5 weeks worth of a loss, right?
Yeah.
Is that about?
Yeah.
So. I mean, for us, it just was kind of bad timing. We get a couple of W's there, would have been okay. And I agree with what you said there too, Neil. I mean, Northwestern, defensively, we played that game so well, okay? Yeah. And we had a shot in the 4th, and you figure against any good team, give us a chance in the 4th, and I'll take it right now. You're a play or so away from that game. Whatever happens in the 4th happens, but you're a play away there. But Northwestern did go win that ball game. It's almost like we sort of shot ourselves in the foot a little bit against Michigan, and I think that really got us.
And not to ever criticize a wide receiver, but because a lot of this falls to Hackenberg and the line. But there were a couple instances in the Michigan game where the receiver didn't get to the yard marker.
Yeah.
That would have been especially in that first drive. And Hamilton's young, and has been excellent.
Yeah.
But there's a combination.
Well,
of
those really stick out, especially when you have the lack of run game, because now they're so difficult to get a 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. They just drop a guy in the box, and I mean it's almost impossible for us. And that's what really makes it tough and real visible when you see it. Like, got to get them first downs on third and whatever it would be. So
here's something that occurred to me though. You talk about, I don't think it's a great timing for the bye, but how important is the fact that they got the bowl back, the bowl eligibility back? Because now all of a sudden you go through a couple of tough losses, they still have something to play for, something big that these guys didn't think they were going to have. Those games against Ohio State and Michigan State are going to be very, very difficult for this team to win. But the rest of them are all there. With this defense, they could beat any of them. And to have the bowl sticking out there as a carrot, to me, is really important for this team.
But they really haven't played well since they got that information.
Yeah. Well, they've played
Maybe
some
they have
better
to
teams,
digest
though.
it a little bit.
They've played some better teams, though, since that info as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
and teams had a chance to figure them out, too, a little bit. So.
But I agree. I mean, there's at least 4 winnable games on remaining.
So
Not to preface your picks.
Real quick, do we stay with our preseason picks? Do you stay with the preseason record, or do you change it?
Well, the last time I tried to change it, I heard some from the right here. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that
You
I
were
think
8-4,
they're gonna
right?
be 8-4. I can't say that anymore.
I picked 7-5, and I'm still pretty comfortable with it. I didn't think they would get to 4-2 this way, but I think as I look out, that I still think they could get to that 7-5.
Mine was an 8-win season. I had an 8-win season, so again, it's going to be tough. But I mean, I think we still got a shot at it.
Yeah, I was at 7. Now I'm thinking maybe 6 comes into play. Who knows?
Yeah.
We are through a half a year.
There are a lot of dangers here. I mean, especially, there's been significant injuries in the preseason, but they've sort of
stayed
held
pretty
on.
healthy in the
They've
year,
stayed
yeah.
pretty healthy up to this point.
Some of the teams they're playing have had some pretty serious injuries too. Indiana, I mean, Illinois, not necessarily injuries, but it's kind of self-destructing. There are definitely winnable games there. I think one of the keys is going to be, if things get tough against Ohio State, that they don't panic and think, boy, it's all over, because there's still a lot to play for.
Well, the Maryland game is going to be a really key game because they're going to have another 100,000 crowd coming off the Ohio State game, and that's the one that, as we look at it now, could prevent a significant losing.
Are you like foreshadowing your Ohio State pick a little bit?
Well, we do have to take a pause. We will come back with more Nitwits, and when we do, we've been through a first half. So who stuck out? Who's the MVP? And then, of course, there's always some surprises. We'll weigh in on who we think those guys have been that have outperformed maybe the expectations so far.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Monarch Cleaners for all your cleaning needs. By your rehab choice, Health South Altoona. Ask for us by name. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life.
Now back to the Nitwits. A roundtable discussion of Penn State football.
All right, 6 games are in the books, 6 left to play. Through the first half, who is your MVP? We'll start with Joe.
Do we go offense and defense, or just
Just
whatever you like.
Yeah.
one? Okay. Well, I got to go with 2. Then I'm just going to go 1 offense, 1 defense. In my opinion, you got Zettel on the defensive side of football. I just think I like the way he's destructive. He seems like he plays hard every snap. And on the offense side of football, I've got to go with Hamilton. I think that he's really progressed. Even as young as he's been, he's made a lot of plays for us, and he is sort of our go-to guy in any of the situations. He just seems to be making the big plays. So I'm going to have 1 on O, 1 on D, if that's okay.
All right, that's fine with me. Who's next?
I'll go next. I mean, I think the guy that really has jumped out to me, I mean, Hamilton is a no-brainer for me on offense, but Mike Hull, moved him to middle linebacker. We're seeing what this guy is like when he's healthy. What a playmaker, all over the place, getting things done. Came this close to a pick 6, was kind of kicking himself after the Michigan game. The other guy I'd like to throw out is Sam Ficken. He's had 2 kicks blocked, but he admitted one was probably his fault. But he has turned into a money kicker, and you only wish from Penn State's perspective that they would get him down there close enough a little bit more. I mean, when you're struggling to score, getting to 3 is better than getting nothing.
Well, you sort of stole both mine.
Thank you.
Should have scripted this.
I squeezed you.
First time we've agreed.
On anything.
I think Hull's been tremendous. He also recovered that onside kick that should have been a recovery. And I'm going to switch up. I'm going to go with Hackenberg. I just think that he's been under incredible duress, and I don't want to underappreciate what he's done and the challenges he's had. But I agree, Hamilton's also been really good.
All right, well, you guys have taken all my MVPs, so we'll move on to surprise player. We'll start again with Joe. Give me 1 surprise player.
Surprise player. Okay. I don't know if it's really a surprise player, but anytime Akil Lynch seems to be in the ball game, he seems to do a good job. And I don't know if it's just me that I root for the guy, but I think he's someone that, to me, wasn't a surprise player, but maybe some of the people that are out there, when he gets a chance, he really makes something happen.
Since Mark stole your MVP, we'll let you get surprised first.
Well, I was actually going to go with Ficken because he's had some bumps in the road these last couple years. I'm just wondering, can he punt? You know, would this
Seriously.
be
Yeah.
something to consider during the open date? I mean, he has a strong leg.
Sure.
They got to get that fixed. It's hard to play complementary football with a great defense and an inconsistent punter.
The one guy that has impressed me because he had a very difficult first game is Trevor Williams. He struggled against UCF. I know he's not been perfect, but they needed that one piece in the secondary to kind of complement the other veterans there. And I think he's generally the last few games stepped up and been a solid, dependable corner for them. Was not sure if he was capable of that, but he's showing that he is.
I'm going to go deep into the well and give you Parker Cothran.
Nice.
Wow.
Very limited snaps, but he's got 7 tackles. He's got 2.5 tackles for loss and 0.5 sack. In very limited snaps, always seems to, whenever he's on the field, making a play.
KC never would have come up with that.
No.
Well, that's why he's out. That's why he does news now. That's why we put him into the morning hours. He can't stay up late nights anymore for the
You're
NitWits.
carrying us, Jake.
There you go.
Well, I guess, thank you. I mean, I don't know. I just.
Perfect segue, right?
Perfect segue into predictions. When we come back, I've got. I don't want to brag up the commanding lead I have in Nitwit of the Year, but I guess I do have one. We will be back with more predictions. Ohio State coming up. These could get ugly, maybe. We'll see when we come back.
The Nitwits are brought to you by the Altoona Professional Hearing Aid Center, your hearing aid healthcare professional. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State game day every Friday.
All right, it is prediction time. 2 of the classic helmets in college football. Penn State taking on Ohio State at Beaver Stadium. We will be letting you know how we think it's going to go. I guess as the Nitwit of the Week, I go first.
Who was the Nitwit of the week the last few weeks?
It's been.
I'm kidding. No,
well,
I'm joking.
Well, we had the deflated.
You're
ball.
letting us know
We
30
had-
times here.
I'm in. Okay.
Go ahead, get after it.
Okay, I'm going to go 26-6 Ohio State. I think that Penn State's defense, as good as they can, keeps them as in it as possible, but this offense is just, I don't know if they can get anything going against the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I'll go next because I'm so far out of it. I'm going to go 27-10 Ohio State. Don't think Penn State plays as poorly as they did last year, but I don't see Penn State matching up really well with Ohio State or Michigan State, so I think the Buckeyes win 27-10.
Yeah, I think the only way this game is even close is if the defense just really stands on its head and really gets some patience from the offense. Big crowd night game. I'm going to say Ohio State 24, Penn State 13.
Joe?
I'm going to say that it's going to be raining and cold, driving wind, 19-16 Penn State.
Ooh, well, there you go. All of our predictions are in.
Mike will be proud of you in that chair.
We'll see how we do on Saturday. We'll see you next time.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Doctors Howells, Reed, and Solani, orthodontics for children and adults. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona. Just ask rental. Buy what you want, rent what you need. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your cleaning needs. By your rehab choice, Health South Altoona. Ask for us by name. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By the Altoona Professional Hearing Aid Center, your hearing aid healthcare professional. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State game day every Friday. You can also see the Nitwits on AltoonaMirror.com. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.